Gerald, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, Gerald, go by Star Wars Fanatic on my channel. I do announce my name once in a while, but I've been doing this for about almost 3 years. Been a Star Wars fan since 1977. Been to every opening movie on opening night with my mother, and we've since added a lot of people into it. So we take up about 2 rows in the movie theater when we go see Star Wars. um, I've been in the military. I was in the Navy. My father was in the Army, so I've seen Star Wars in about every country we've lived in.
Cool. So today we're going to talk about the Jedi philosophy. What is your take on the Jedi philosophy? Is it a religion? Is it not a religion? Do you actually believe it? Is the Force real?
That's a loaded question. Jedi philosophy is a lot like Eastern philosophy right now. They don't believe in a deity or a god or anything like that. They're pretty to themselves. They don't jump into relationships and stuff. It's more of like a Shaolin monk, is what I'd compare it closer to. They take a lot of the religions that are out now and add it in. I wouldn't say it's a real religion, but it is, like I said, closer to a Shaolin monk. Yeah.
And what is your take on their philosophy? Like for me, I think the application of their power is underwhelming. It's more like the Pope. They sit there with all the riches and do nothing, or do very little to help people as much as they could. I think the Sith are correct in their application of the Force. Unironically, I think they're even though they may apply it in evil ways, their tendency to use the Force is more moral. You should, if you have the power, be able to try and make a difference in the universe.
Yeah, but a lot of their influence is inward. Like their reasoning is inward. They want power for themselves as well. As far as which one, Jedi or Sith, I would go with, I'd have to go with the gray area because both have good aspects and both could do the right thing, but they don't. They go their separate ways. They're very binary and they hit together, and it doesn't equal a better universe. They're always at odds with each other, where if they just joined up, took the better parts of each one, made it better. My own religious, I guess, it's not even a religion. I believe something similar to the Force, where it's a big thing happening now, where people believe in energy and the cosmos and all that stuff. I don't believe in a god or a deity, and that's gonna hurt a lot of feelings of my fans here, but but it is what it is, you know. And I don't put anybody down for their religious beliefs. I just think, whatever works for you, go for it. We'll find out when we're gone.
I'm a hardcore atheist. I don't believe there's a God or anything. I'm a straight up naturalist. I think that everything in the universe is physical, natural, science stuff. And there's no real evidence for anything more than that. And I spend my time debating and discussing with people who are religious to see if they actually have evidence. And that's my job. So, what do you think about? You said you were talking that there are energies similar to the Jedi philosophy. What is your position on that? And how does it relate to the Jedi philosophy?
Like everything's connected, not through some kind of god or anything like that. Nobody's controlling our future, but once we're gone, our energy dissipates and it goes back into the cosmos, and we live on through that. I don't know if it's a conscious living experience or if it's just kind of like electricity when it dissipates, but everything is connected in a way. I don't necessarily know about proof of that, but it's just a belief, and that's what beliefs are. They're theories.
Yeah, well, we're all definitely made of the same stuff. The Carl Sagan quote: "We're all made of stardust," which is pretty cool. And so,
Yeah.
When we are broken down, we definitely get placed in other people pretty often. I believe there's a funny quote, something like, "Every glass of water contains one particle that was in the digestive tract of some old British guy." It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's most likely true.
So tell me more about the Jedi philosophy. Like specifically, what are its principles, goals, aims?
Their principles are peace and justice, and whatever that means, because like you said, you don't see much of that. Like when Qui-Gon Jinn goes to Tatooine, finds Anakin Skywalker, he's not there to free slaves. Okay, well, if that's your dedication in your life, why aren't you there, as a side mission? Now that you know what's going on, help them out. They police areas. I guess that's the closest word you could use. Policing things to make that planet better, but you don't really hear about it making it better. The closest one to actually doing something like that was Luke Skywalker, and that was really inadvertent. He just wanted to save his father and wasn't really in it for the bigger picture. In the beginning of A New Hope, he was all about joining the Empire until Obi-Wan Kenobi grabbed him and said, "Hey, dude, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted with comments here." He's like, "Hey, dude, check out the rebellion. They're cool, or they have cake." He's like, "Oh, cake, yeah. All right, let's join the rebellion." So he really didn't have a solid future. He just wanted off that desert rock. And then once he became a Jedi, it wasn't about helping the greater good. Jabba the Hutt dying was a consequence of him wanting to rescue Han Solo, which was a little selfish too.
Yeah, but Han did it for the money. He was straight up in it for the money, straight up like me,
Oh
like
yeah.
go for the money. But yeah, it wasn't until after and when he started the whole the new Jedi Order with his Jedi Academy after the death of the Empire that he actually started to try and help people. But yeah, I did find it quite ironic that after Qui-Gon brought Anakin out of the Tatooine, they didn't bother to send other Jedi's back. We should solve the slavery there. Nah, just forget about it. It's fine. We're gonna move on. Plot lines. Yeah, who cares?
Right. And that's one thing I had issue with. I was like, wait a minute, can we go back there and figure this out? I mean, there's his mom's still back there as a slave. You just leaving her? He's like, this little blue guy with wings says I can't have her, so I'm not gonna take her. Okay, and he's stronger than you. How? He's a little
So
floaty blue guy.
So how do you think the Jedi philosophy parses that, squares that circle? Like, why don't they actually do anything to help most of the universe?
Because it's like a bureaucracy. It's its own little bureaucracy, a microcosm of their own political environment where they can't just go out and do things on their own. Like you're attached to the council. The council gets to approve anything you do or disapprove and it really messes with what they are supposed to believe in. They're supposed to be these guys who are protectors of people that can't protect themselves. And they're not really doing that because they're letting this high council say, yeah, it's not our problem.
So wasn't Anakin right to be like, no, I'm not going to wait for the council's approval. I'm just going to go do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the downfalls of him is he's like at odds with the council constantly because he wanted to do things and help. He wanted peace. That's the whole thing behind Anakin. He wanted peace and he wanted to be able to love. And the council stopped all of that. I mean, they helped get into a war that they really shouldn't have been involved in.
And do you think that it's their fault that he turned to the dark side? Like if they had not opposed trying to help people, they might have not done that.
I think partially it was their fault. Another part was the influence of Sidious. Um, a lot of it was the council. I don't think Sidious would have been as successful had the council said, all right, maybe we do things wrong. Let's go check this out. Maybe this guy's got something to it. But no, they didn't trust him. They thought he was just a stupid kid that somebody dead promised would get trained, and they just went along with it. So they ignored him and his feelings and his thoughts. At one time, the Jedi were allowed to get into relationships, or let's just say relations. The High Republic novels that are out now go into that a little bit. Jedi were intermingling with each other and having little flings and stuff, and it was okay. So I'm imagining sometime after that, they're like, yeah, you know what? Let's stop that. It's confusing people.
Definitely. And Sidious actually mentioned that too. He's like, the council is lazy and doesn't do anything in their bureaucracy. And that was like what motivated Anakin and the people he was talking to follow him, wasn't it? Like that was the whole justification of his position.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it, I don't know if you've watched the Clone Wars or not, but also he had a Padawan, or Ahsoka Tano, and the council turned their back on her and we're going to let her be executed by the Republic Tribunal. And they're just like, yeah, okay. And then when it was over, they're like, oh, we knew you were right all along. Yeah, you were good. We knew it. This was your test. And now you can be a Jedi. She's like, screw you, buddy. I'm out. I'll go do my own thing, be the Jedi that we are supposed to be on my own. And Anakin wishes he could have done that with her.
Yeah. So why don't you think that ideology never took over and became its own faction of Jedi that had an influence independent of the council?
It did, but a lot of those people, that was one-offs, like one here, one there. Like Dooku, he, in the original form, he left the council, went and ruled his planet that he was from in his father's stead after his father and his brother died. And then it was later on that he turned to the dark side. Well, now they're showing it that he turned to the dark side prior to leaving the council. So, like Dooku was one. There's one in the Jedi Fallen Order game. He left the council, and then they all wind up getting manipulated to the dark side. And I don't want to say it's total dark side. They're not becoming Sith or anything. They're just taking on different thoughts and different measures on how they're supposed to do things, and they're seeing that the council was wrong. That we aren't supposed to be like this.
And why don't you think that
having
ever
a problem with my sound for some reason?
Oh yeah.
Let me see if I can fix that real quick. How's that? Let's see. Anybody hear that?
My side can hear you. All right, we're good.
Yeah, that's weird because my side cannot. I think it's a Streamlabs thing. This thing is all kinds of goofy.
Yeah, I think you have to select desktop audio, or no, that would pick up mine. So I think you have to also select input a new audio device, select your microphone.
Audio
because microphones should be able to work for multiple devices, unlike video.
Yeah, that's what you'd think, but sometimes when I do my live streams, it does this. It'll just kick my microphone off of it and not let it work or whatever. It's really annoying.
Jar Jar is the Wesley Crusher of Star Wars.
See, a lot of people hate Jar Jar. I don't mind him because back then George Lucas was still making Star Wars for kids. I know there's head lopping off and arms cutting off and all that stuff, but for the majority of the shows, it was for kids. There's the adult elements, but Jar Jar was a kid's character, much like Grogu's a kid's character, or a character people just want to see something cute in Star Wars. He was goofy and annoying, but I'm not going to hate on the actor for how he was written.
Well, I actually love the way he was written. I don't think it was intentional, but the Darth Jar Jar meme is so perfect. It just fits the story. It makes sense.
It is. And I wish they would have ran with that instead of cutting his lines in the second movie and the third movie. I wish they would have kind of ran with something like that.
It would have been so cool to like have a adaptation where they take the fan storylines, the fan arcs, and then just incorporate it into the movie. That would make it would have blown up. Would have been so much more popular if that happened.
Oh yeah. And can you imagine the backlash though if oh, my sound is off, Patrick says. Okay, so can you imagine the backlash if they did go back and change a George Lucas story? Disney's ruining George Lucas's vision, even though George Lucas went back like 7 or 8 times and ruined his own vision in A New Hope and changed all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
but
then it happened anyway with the new one, so it's like, well,
yeah, sort of, I guess. I see the new ones I don't really hate on because I just love Star Wars, so I just look at it for what it is, a fun adventure. It's to me, it's not so disconnected from the original movies because the original movies, Luke was a whiny little pud. And in The Last Jedi, he's back to being that whiny little guy because he got knocked down a couple notches. Again, he was talking about the Jedi, how their hubris and all that just stopped them from being what they could have been, what the founding books said they should have been. And he got out of it.
Well, I was a little disappointed that the storyline essentially copy pasted the Death Star again. That was a little disappointed with that one. And I liked that Luke went through like a story arc of failure and success and failure and success and character building. I didn't think what's her name got that at all. She was just always invincible, um, Mary Sue type, and that was kind of sad.
Yeah, and I mean, she isn't even the biggest part of the story either. The biggest thing I like about the stories is Kylo Ren. Um, and it's much because of his Jedi philosophy and his Sith, or he's not even a Sith, but his dark side philosophies, that he kind of intermingled the two together, and he wanted peace in the galaxy just like his grandfather did. And he saw Luke Skywalker as this great Jedi, and Luke goes to cut him down one night when he's in his sleep. And he's like, wait a minute, maybe Jedi are screwed up just like the originals thought they were.
Yeah, I thought that was a good story. Definitely for sure. What are your thoughts on the TV offshoots, the 600 or 700 of them that have been out now?
Oh, you're talking about the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. I love the Mandalorian. I like the way it's set up. It's set up like a Western serial, like back in the 60s and 70s and the old samurai shows and stuff. A lot of people have an issue with the Book of Boba Fett and the Kenobi series now that Andor's out, and Andor's just proving to be amazingly written, directed, acted, and everybody's looking back at these other shows going, okay, why weren't they like that? Well, they're written a different way. They're a different kind of story. They're not this. This is a fluid story, kind of like Game of Thrones, where The Mandalorian's a choppy story, where at the end of the episode, it kind of meshes into the bigger picture. Where this, it's everything is in the bigger picture. So I like the Kenobi series. It answered a lot of questions for me about Obi-Wan and Darth Vader and A New Hope when Obi-Wan says Darth Vader killed Anakin. And for a long time, I'm like, he's lying. He lied to you, Luke. This is a Jedi, supposed to be a good guy, and he's lying to you. And you just come back with this new information, and Darth Vader's my father. And he's like, oh, yeah. And tell you, because, that's the way I look at it. And Luke's like, okay.
Yep, yep. I didn't think the pacing on the Obi-Wan was pretty slow, especially in the earlier episodes. It was not as fast or as like realistic. It was too cartoony in a lot of ways, I think. Um, Too many things happened that I don't think were realistic enough. Whereas like Andor is very realistic. It's very like what would actually happen in a real world situation, and the tension is real of what you would feel in that situation. I think that they did really well. Same with The Mandalorian. It felt very realistic in the way that the characters were portrayed, less cartoony and kid-like. Whereas in the other series you mentioned, it started to feel more cartoon-like with the Boba Fett one, where he's just getting beat up all the time for no reason. Like, why? Why is this happening? Uh,
Right. He didn't even get to kill the Sarlacc.
yep, yep. And then same with the Obi-Wan series, where again I think Leia was portrayed as way too Mary Sue-ish. Again, social politics. I think not as realistic as it should have been. And I think that took away from it. I think if she was portrayed as more like an actual kid, very vulnerable, I think that would have made the story much more engaging. But I definitely think Andor and The Mandalorian were done extremely well.
Yeah. The Kenobi series, the most I like of it's probably the last 3 episodes. The engagements between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader.
For sure.
Seeing that Reva's just a scared girl and she gets cut down finally again. And okay, good. Yeah, you're gone. We're never going to see you again. Thank God. But Anakin telling Obi-Wan, you didn't kill Anakin. I did. And I thought that was just awesome. I was like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. The fight scenes were great. And for that, it's the action in the last 3 episodes, definitely, where the Andor series, it's slow. It's slow all the way through, but you got to read between the lines. You got to see this is the story. These characters are deep. You got to read into the deep characters. You're not going to get the lightsabers whooping and blasters pew pewing, and it's not that kind of story. Just as Better Call Saul isn't that kind of story, but it's still engaging and it's still good. And at the end, everybody's going to say, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, it's got the spy movie aesthetic, the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, where you're trying to follow the storyline and what's going on, and there's like multiple plots of who's engaging. It's really good, really well done that
Yep.
way for sure. You can keep tension even in dialogue by having that kind of suspense there of the spy aesthetic. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's great stuff. And I like spy movies and spy stories and everything. There's always a twist. So I'm just waiting for that twist. And I've been coming up with a lot of theory videos about that twist. And I know I'm wrong. I don't care if I'm wrong. It's no big deal. I'm not going to curse Lucasfilm just for saying, oh, you didn't make this guy a Sith. Oh, no, I don't care. Cool. You guys did something different that I couldn't predict. That's neat.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of twists is that they can't be like painfully obvious. Like with the new Lord of the Rings movie making what's his name, Sauron. Like everybody knew that. Episode 2, yep, he's Sauron. He's the most
Yep.
successful male who doesn't make mistakes. Bad guy. We know politics. That's definitely going to be him. Oh, Gandalf.
Yep.
Definitely not Gandalf. Just be plastered on his head because it's like everyone knows that's him.
I know. I got through that episode where he landed on Middle Earth, and that's all my wife says, Gandalf. She's like,
Yep.
what makes you say that? I said, because it's Gandalf.
Yep.
So it
Yep.
says it. I mean, he might as well wear a sign on his back that says, hey, I'm Gandalf.
Yep. But yeah, because if a spy movie is done well, it'll be hard to see the twist. That's like
Yep.
the key to knowing it.
Yep.
That's why
And I think
Jar
Andor's going to
Jar.
do that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yep. That's why the Darth Jar Jar would have been hilarious. It would have been so perfect. Nobody would have seen it coming. It would have been
Nobody.
perfect.
Everybody would have been like, oh, God, I'm sorry I hated this guy in the first movie. Thanks for not getting rid of him. Now everybody's like, why'd you get rid of him? You should have made him this.
Yeah.
George Lucas is like, sold the company because you're our dicks.
Yep. So what do you think of the animes? Bad Batch, Clone Wars, those?
I like the Bad Batch. There's a lot of filler episodes that I'm just like, especially that lizard lady. I forget her name now, but I was like, man, you sound like a diner waitress. Just go away. I want him to stick with the story. And I know the Clone Wars was set up in that serial style as well. So I kind of forgive it a little bit and just wait for the episodes that are really building on what we need to see. The rise of the Empire, the death of the Jedi, and the rise of the Sith, and how that all comes to play. The Clone Wars, love it. About a third of it.
A third of it?
Yeah, about the episodes about R2D2 and C3PO, I could live without. I love all the Darth Maul stuff, or Maul in that case. The Mandalorian arcs are amazing. There's so much more lore building and world building and all of that. What else? Rebels, just great. After you get through season 1 of Rebels, it just takes off, and it makes it so good. Boba Fett in Revelation. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, my chat does have a few questions for you, if you don't mind. Big Bad Mama asks, can you discuss the influence of the author Joseph Campbell and Akira Kurosawa on the Hidden Fortress in Star Wars?
Yeah, absolutely. Akira is a big influence of George Lucas. He said that from the beginning, that the Jedi were supposed to be set up like those old samurai types from the serials, and from the Kurosawa. I always have a hard time with his name. Kurosawa films, where the lone wolf and cub and that kind of thing, and the Mandalorian shows that as well. So, yeah, I mean, George Lucas is just deep in that stuff, and then carrying on with that tradition now with Lucasfilm.
For sure. And so what was their influence specifically? Because I don't know the history behind these two individuals and what influence they had. What specifically did they achieve in the field?
Joseph Campbell, I'm not really sure of, but Akira Kurosawa was groundbreaking with the kind of stuff he did with the angles of lens and the way the hero was portrayed as this guy that, oh, I don't even know how to explain it now, that he was like a lone wolf, but still moral, still had that moral compass. Kind of like what you were asking before, if anybody had left the Jedi Order and continued on with Jedi philosophy that was supposed to be better than what the Jedi Order was. That's kind of what Kurosawa was doing.
Gotcha. Slicey Slicer asks, can you ask him for his thoughts on Anakin's virgin birth?
Oh, we're going to get into religion now. Huh? Yeah, my thoughts on that, it's trash. I'm sorry.
Mom was just
I
lying, just like,
understand.
nope, just like with Joseph, like, it came from God. Nope, no cheating involved. Nope.
No, right. I mean, there was somebody there. Well, in their philosophy, midichlorians make up what builds Jedi and gets your connection to the Force and all that. But I don't like that now it can build life in somebody that just doesn't have life. It doesn't make sense to me. Um, I'll go along with it because that's what they say, and it's a fantasy universe and it's a fantasy religion. So, but if I were to apply that in modern day, I'd be locked up.
Jim Omadon asks, I must know this. What lightsaber combat out of the 7 would you like to take if you became a Jedi? Secondly, what would you achieve with power, assuming you have the Force?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not real versed on all the Jedi forms, but from what I understand, Form 4 and Form 5 are my favorites. They're more of a Form 5 is more of a aggressive style, along with I think 7, Form 7. Um, I'm not a defensive person. I'm more of a aggressive person. And if I had the Force, yeah, I'd be a Sith.
Yep, same. Me too. 100%. Oh man.
You get to do what you want. You got to worry about your young one trying to kill you sometimes, but just do what Sidious did and get them cut down before they get the chance.
Yeah. Well, I'd straight up focus more on the Force. So as a lightsaber, I prefer dual sabers. I've always liked dual sabers. It's just cool. But if I had the Force, I wouldn't care about the sabers at all. I would just focus on learning the Force because I think that was one thing I feel that is missing in the Jedi, like, publicized movies and things that are very popular, is really capitalizing on the potential of using the Force in like a scientific way. I'd like to see more like a Expanse or super sci-fi thing that takes it super literally and says, how can we apply this in combat to make it the most vicious combat we possibly can? Take like little rocks and just throw it at the guy's ankle to plus out his ankle, and then let saber him in the face or whatever. Because I feel like
Pocket sand.
exactly, just get it in their eye where they can't see it. It'd be so many potential ways to use the Force: capture the air so they can't breathe, stop their lungs, put a little pressure on their heart, cause an aneurysm. Like, there's so many ways you could use the Force in a subtle way to be especially deadly in combat. Whereas it doesn't really seem like people are using the Force very much, and then just force push every occasional
Right.
tin saber bat.
Right. Once in a while, they'll throw a rock or a box at you. That's easy to
Yep,
block.
yep,
Except for in the Kenobi series. I mean, Vader rained hell on him with those boulders.
yep, yep. But I was thinking
And,
like
and
what
he
I
is a
would,
Sith.
yeah, for sure. Well, I was thinking what Force would look like is something like everybody would create a Force bubble around them, essentially, and you could understand anything that was going on, any kind of Force disturbances in that. And it would be a combat of arms of trying to push into their bubble essentially, and then gain control of the area around them. Because if you did, game over. Like, if you get any control of anything within like a 10-foot radius, they're going to die instantly if the Force was real.
Right.
And so
Right.
it would be like a mind battle of trying to distract or overpower them. And I don't think lightsabers would really be a big part of the universe anymore if the Force was real. Lightsabers are more like a backup if you're not that good at the Force.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what they should be. They should be a weapon, but not the primary weapon. I mean, you got this mystical thing surrounding you that you could pull from all angles. You don't have to just come at them with this blade. Um, they're cool, and I'd say out of the newer movies, Rey's lightsaber is the best part of her. It's the coolest designed lightsaber I've seen. I like the dual blades, but I like Rey's lightsaber a lot. I even had to go buy one.
Oh,
It's
Kyle Katan's lightsaber is the best. It is so badass.
You're right. It is good. It is good. But as far as live action lightsabers, hers is
Yeah.
probably my favorite.
Yeah, I
Um,
was big into the video games. Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy is phenomenal. It was some of the best
oh
Star
yeah,
Wars games ever.
yep. I still have the Old Republic on my PC that I play once in a while. Clunky as hell, but
Yep.
I still do it.
Those big 2D pigs coming at you. Hilarious. The green ones.
Yep.
That game was so scary when I first played it. So it has so intense in the way that it feels like the Andor, where it's like a very scary prison-esque scenario and you're trying to fight your way out as like a guy with a gun. Awesome.
Yep, yep. And back then, what was it, like 30 discs to download the game or
Yep.
install it?
Yep.
Now it's like 15 minutes, it's done.
Uh, Slicey Slicer asks, "What is your favorite species? Alien species?" Twi'leks. Yeah, I'd go with Twi'leks.
At one time, it used to be the Trandoshans, but that has recently switched due to the introduction of chrysanthemum. So now it is the Wookiees. If all Wookiees were like chrysanthemum, they never would have got beaten by the Empire. They would have just stomped them. He made Chewbacca look weak, in my opinion. So, yeah, definitely the Wookiees, the darker Wookiees, the mean ones.
Nice, nice. I have a thing for hot blondes, so I'm going Twi'leks all the way.
I have a wife.
uh, Winston's mom asks, on Padme Amidala Nabiri's secret marriage, what did he think of the storyline? And note, the amygdala region of the brain is primarily associated with emotional process.
All right, let me read that question one more time. Padme Amidala Nabiri's secret marriage. Her marriage to Anakin, I assume. Attack of the Clones is one of my least favorite movies. I'm not going to say I don't like it. I'm just going to say that it was the poorest executed. I think they could have handled that romance so much better and so much more believable. The dialogue between the two just seemed like, if I met somebody in the real world and I had that kind of dialogue with somebody, I'd expect them to probably punch me in the face and throw me out of the car. I hate sand. All right, who cares? Get out. Go buy your own soft drink. I don't care. But I really didn't think it was that believable. And I thought she was a stronger person than to be influenced by somebody like Anakin, who at the time was just as whiny as Luke was in A New Hope. And she was this powerful senator. She had been a queen. She definitely had her crap together. And this guy, he's sitting there whining about Obi-Wan Kenobi not trusting him. So, yeah, I think eventually she would have fell in love with him, but not that soon. I mean, it was like, I love you. Oh, I don't like you. I love you. Okay, I love you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I mean, unless he's going, you love me, you know.
Fenton Mully asks, what are your opinion on Snoke not being Pelagius?
I'm glad. I'm glad he wasn't Plagueis. I didn't want him shoehorned into the sequels. I didn't like Plagueis. So all these Plagueis theories that kept coming out, I was like, no, please, no. Plagueis is so much better than that. He's deeper than this. This guy just hates things just because he hates things. He doesn't Snoke, that is. He doesn't have a real reason. He's got no revenge secret or anything. He's just being bad just because he wants to be bad. So I'm glad it wasn't Plagueis, and I'm glad he died in the middle movie too. Everybody else complains about that, but I'm glad. I was like, good, thank you. Finally, this guy's gone. Andy Serkis is an amazing performer. He's amazing with the capture screening and all that and dialogue, but this just wasn't the character he should have been playing because
Yep.
I didn't like him.
What do you think is the best Sith Lord in any part of the lore that you know of?
Nihilus, hands down, favorite Sith Lord altogether. Dude could eat planets. Lord of Hunger. He's
What else?
yeah.
Tell us more about him. Tell us more about the lore.
I mean, just his power, just how much power he had. I think he's more powerful than Sidious even. I mean, he could suck the life force out of a planet. If Sidious would have went up against him, he just went, go bye-bye Sidious. I mean, it's like the whole Avengers Endgame thing where they're playing around trying to beat Thanos, but they got one secret weapon that nobody's thinking of. Ant-Man shrink down tiny, go in the dude's mouth or butt and blow up. Dead. You don't have to worry about Thanos anymore. This movie's about 15 minutes long, and you don't have to bore me anymore. So same thing with Nihilus. He's a secret weapon, and everybody's like, "Oh, Sidious is the most powerful," and blah 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 blah. No, he just figured out how to live longer. That's it.
So Finton says Nihilus is in the Darth Revan book.
Yes. It takes me forever to remember the lineage of all of them, who was whose master, who was not. I just remember the guy. He could eat planets.
Yeah, the Revan series, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. That game was so good.
Yes,
Phenomenal.
it was.
I got so into that game. The story was perfect. The soundtrack just went with the planet so well.
Yep.
And the twist at the end, like you didn't see it coming. It was an extremely well written story, and then they ruined it with
they
the,
took
like,
their time on that.
Yep, they ruined it
They're
with the
supposed.
like multiplayer one, the online MMORPG.
Yeah.
I'm like, why?
Yep.
Pay to win.
Yep. And then they're supposed to be redoing the Knights of the Old Republic. Not just a remaster where they update the graphics and all that, but a whole rewrite and everything. So I hope they don't ruin those storylines if it does happen. Revan's probably my second favorite because he led Mandalorian Wars and stuff, and Mandalorian's my favorite culture. So as you can see by
Yep. You
my
have
armor in the back.
a full set that you definitely wear every weekend, right?
No, I've wore it twice. Once to a comic convention and then once on Halloween handing out candy.
Nice,
that was it. Oh no, wait, 3 times. I worked to work for a Halloween costume party or contest and won. So
nice. Yep. Let's see. Star Trek. Tim put Star Trek greater than Star Wars. I don't know what your opinions are on that one.
Kick him out.
Banned.
No, I like Star Trek too. It's not my favorite, but I do like it. My wife is a Trekkie, so she gets me to watch all the shows and movies, and I'm really getting into the Picard series. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I'm not an old school Star Trek fan, so it doesn't bother me that they go against their own lore. The newer movies, I thought they were done well as far as the graphics and everything, but I didn't like the whole time warp jumping thing. That just irritated me. But Star Wars is definitely greater than Star Trek.
For sure. Yeah, the first season of Picard was really good. I really enjoyed that one for sure. It's not Discovery as much, but it's a different topic.
Yeah, I couldn't get through that one. I was like, but what was the other one?
Oh, the Star Trek
New Worlds or something.
Yeah, that was Strange New Worlds or something.
Yeah, that's it. I was having
amazing.
a hard time getting through that. I was having a hard time getting through it. Yeah,
I love that one.
I was like, what's going on? My wife won't even watch it now. I'm like, we need to get back into it and see if we can figure this thing out because it's beautifully done. The cinematography is great, but it's just it was hard to get into.
Oh, I love that one. It was like a throwback, reminded me of the originals. I enjoyed it a lot. Mistro Han asked, "What about Vitiate? Vitiate? Yes.
Vitiate. I don't know much about Vitiate. Sorry.
Darth Vitiate. Is that the one that Sidious was talking about? The one that can suck life out of stuff?
No, that was Nihilus.
Gotcha.
Or no, Sidious didn't talk about Nihilus much. I don't know. I don't know much about Darth Vitiate though.
Big Bad Mama asks, "What are your thoughts on Lucas messing with the first film after the fact, especially the interaction between Han and Greedo?"
Han was the only one to shoot. Sorry. It took away a lot from his character when George Lucas changed that. When he made Greedo shoot first and Han do this, it took a lot away because Han was supposed to be a scoundrel. He was supposed to be a survivor trying to survive, and Greedo was a threat to him. And he wasn't going to wait for Greedo to shoot him. He had his pistol ready under the table and went ahead and shot him. George Lucas changing that kind of softened Han Solo up quite a bit. And I like that he was rough in the beginning and down and dirty and ready to kill anybody that got in his way, and then softened over time. Instead, he changed it to him being soft.
Yep, I think that definitely is. And it was unrealistic too, thinking he was like, you can't dodge a laser blast like that. It doesn't even make sense.
Right. You wouldn't even see it coming. It would have hit you in the face.
Yep. It seemed more like one of those political correctness things changed to make him more nice when it just doesn't fit the character.
Right, kind of demasculating the guy a little bit.
Tip asks, is there a third way option to light and dark force?
There is. It's called the Bendu. He is the one in the middle. You'd see him in Star Wars Rebels. He's the only one they've shown so far that I know of. But he doesn't get involved. He'll offer advice to both factions and then act when he gets pissed off against whoever pisses him off. But he's more level-headed and just wants to sleep, really. He sleeps a lot.
Yes, if I was all powerful, I would probably sleep a lot too.
Right, I'm going to sleep my life away. I got all these powers and everything, but yeah. Oh, well, I'm going to sleep. Give me a nice cave.
Rembrandt asks what he thinks of stormtroopers, but they're accurate. I think there's a YouTube clip of the stormtroopers, but they're accurate, and so they just make the series as if stormtroopers are good at shooting and what it would be like. I think it's a funny like meme thing.
Well, A New Hope would have ended in about 30 minutes. I like the stormtroopers. They're not combat soldiers, is what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks they're just these combat soldiers. They're police and occupation troops. Where if we look at our own police and the accuracy of their firing, they only hit their target about 30% of the time. That's our own police force. That's scary. So when you look at stormtroopers, I mean, they may hit their target 10% of the time. Still bad, but it's not that far off from what our own police do.
Yeah, that seems like strange too, because we like to think of stormtroopers as like the Marines or something, or the Army, people who are trained to be professional killers. And when we see them in the movies, they kind of look like jokes. What are you doing? It's like, just it makes no sense. Is there people in the lore who are more like the trained killers who would actually be portrayed as more military style assassins, kind of?
There are. They're few and far between for what you see. Like, I want to say the snow troopers were one. They were combat ready for anything at any time. Death troopers, they mostly did security details, but when they went out, they killed people. They were accurate. Scout troopers, they were mostly snipers and lone hitmen. So they had plenty of troops that weren't the police force.
Tim says white shiny armor seems problematic as a tactical advantage, like wearing white in a cityscape. Not the best strategy, I don't think.
No, probably not. But the reason it was developed is because it was supposed to look like a skeleton, and it was supposed to invoke fear in people. That's what George Lucas's original intent was for it, that their faces look skull-like, and probably like a false sense of dread.
But the way we think of them is more like the clip where the stormtrooper hits his head on the door as he's walking in. That's more the feeling we get. I'm so glad they kept that in. It did fit so well. Rembrandt asked, if a Federation red shirt fought a stormtrooper, who would win? The trooper would miss every shot they fired, but the red shirt would still die.
The red shirt wouldn't even be able to get his phaser out of his holster. I don't think either would win or lose. I think they'd be standing there forever, one trying to get his phaser out of the holster and the other one trying to shoot him and missing. And eventually they just start emoting each other.
Winston's mom asked, who do you think was totally miscast as their character?
Totally miscast as their character? Samuel L. Jackson.
How so?
Samuel L. Jackson. He would have made a better Sith Lord than a Jedi. He's a bad mother.
Definitely think Emperor Palpatine was very well cast. I think he was a good actor in both the series. Did extremely well.
Yes.
Obi-Wan, the original Obi-Wan, and Ewan McGregor were both really great.
Mm-hmm.
Anakin, I think, could have been better.
I think they could have got an acting coach on scene or on set for him.
For sure. Jar Jar was great. I think If they had just played the Jar Jar as Darth Sith, his character would have been perfect. His acting would have been phenomenal, been great for the series. So I liked Jar Jar's character. I actually enjoyed it. I don't have any complaints about Jar Jar. I just wish they had done it as like a twist at the end. It would have been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, when a Phantom Menace or the Phantom Menace came out, I drew a picture of a pencil of Jar Jar and everything. It was really good and really detailed and everything because I liked him. I was like, and that's back before the internet was a thing and people were complaining and everything. So I didn't even hear everybody shouting, I hate this movie. Oh, this sucks. Jar Jar's horrible. I didn't hear any of that. I was just in my own little bubble, like, this guy's cool. He's kind of funny.
Yep. Slicey Slicer asks, why couldn't the Galactic Republic use battle droids instead of clones?
That is the $1 million question. I think battle droids probably cost more than clones, and Palpatine knew this when he started the war. He knew that if everything, his failsafe was that if everything didn't go as he planned it to, that eventually the CIS would go bankrupt from building battle droids. Maintaining them, you had to have personnel that could work on them. You had to have the materials to build them and all that. Where clones, they could just keep reproducing them. Yeah, they cost a little bit, but they're organic, so they take care of themselves, really.
Yeah, and I think like they take longer too, don't they? Like the reason they didn't use clones is because they didn't have time to like build entire facilities to do that specifically.
Yeah.
And so they had to go with what they had, and Sidious already had the clones being made. They're already there. And having that with this whatever genetic programming that they can be manipulated to do something, having that safety net that he could apply that could give him a leveraging power seems like a huge advantage. Whereas drones, the constant reprogramming ability seems like a weakness for his plan. Like, is that they could be re-uploaded with a new program that could erase the programming to obey him at all costs. That seems like a liability, whereas the clones would be much harder to do that. So I can see why there would be a choice for Sidious to specifically use clones and create them as the safety net to fight the war instead of droids.
Yeah, and just think about the updates and stuff for droids. Good Lord.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
it's a pain in the butt when I get that notification that I have to restart my computer. We got to restart a whole droid army now. Hang on a second. Droid Army 2.0's out.
Mr. Ryder asks, what if Anakin didn't burn?
If he didn't burn, I think he wouldn't have been as bitter toward Obi-Wan. He would have still been bitter toward him, but he wouldn't have wanted to kill him as badly. It would have been more of a side thing. Like, I wonder if Obi-Wan's still alive. Oh, there he is. Let's go kill him. Instead of hunting him down.
That makes sense. If you could change anything about the OS, what would you change and why?
The OS.
Original storyline, I'm guessing.
What would I change about it? Luke would stop being so damn whiny. Even in The Empire Strikes Back, when he can't lift a rock and Yoda's like, look at this, and he says, it's impossible. Well, it's not impossible. You just saw the dude do it. It's right there in front of you. Stop whining about it and just take care of it, man. He just showed you it's possible. Quit saying it's impossible.
Yeah, I would change the Force battles and make them super scientific-y. I'd be like, I want detailed combat. That's my criticism about Harry Potter too. Like when get Voldemort and Dumbledore get into a fight, they just throw big glass fireball at each other. Like, come on, magic can do so much more than this.
Right, you could do a rear attack, anything. Just wizard something up, man. You could surround them with some kind of force field where they can't move, and then it suffocates them. Done. War over.
So much more you could do. Like the possibilities of the Force and magic are endless, and they just end up going to magic or just giant fireballs and all the movie. Like, why?
Yeah.
Slicey Slicer asks, could you ask him about the ethics of having a clone army?
I think, well, the ethics of having a clone army, I'm really on the fence about that one because on one side, it's saving citizens' lives from having to join the military to go fight for something they may or may not believe in. where clones are indoctrinated in from birth into believing in that system. So that ethic seems logical, but creating life just to destroy it isn't probably the best option.
Yeah, I'd say all conscious entities have moral value, and so creating a conscious entity and manipulating it to do something, I think, would in itself be immoral, and creating millions of them would be pretty horribly immoral for sure. Be kind of like the God of the Christian Bible seems very much like that to me. It's not a great strategy to create a whole bunch of slaves to obey your story.
Right,
Um,
right. And they say he's a jealous and vain God. Well, yeah, I see that. I see that. Okay, guy, you want us to bow to you. Not to get off topic or anything, but that's one of my gripes with the Christian religion is he says, "Thou shalt hold no God before me." Well, you just admitted there's other gods. He's not the only God.
well,
If we
I
can't hold
interpret that.
any other God in front of him.
Well, I interpret that differently. I think it's more like if you believe there is another God above him, you can believe there's multiple gods even if there wasn't. So I don't see like a logical contradiction with that statement because obviously there were other people who believed in gods at the time, and they could believe in gods that were and just not believe in God, not believe in the Christian God, and that would be holding another God above me or whatever. So I don't see that as necessarily an entailment because I've heard that argument a lot from people in the atheist community, which I'm a big part of. Um, my problem is more like Second Kings 2:24. It's my favorite Bible verse of all time. It's the one where the kids make fun of the bald guy and God sends the bears to maul the kids. I'm like,
Mhm.
makes perfect sense. All powerful being,
Right.
kids making fun of a bald guy, smote them.
You have been smoked. Can you imagine that in schools now where, bullies in school and a bear just pops up in school and mauls a kid? Bullying's ended.
Yep, yep.
Uh, Another one I don't get is they say we're the first ones that God created with a free will. We were created after all the other angels and all that stuff. Yet Lucifer was able to rise up using a free will. How are we the
Yeah.
only ones with a free will if Lucifer and his followers had a free will?
And Lucifer was the nice guy. He freed us. He gave us all the abilities. He told us the truth. He's the one who didn't lie in the original, and he killed far less people. Lucifer killed 10 people in the whole Bible. God killed at minimum 2.5 million.
Yep. Yep. And he's still going.
Yep.
uh, yeah, it's kind of like the Sith as well. If you look at all the monologues with the Sith in the movies and the TV shows and everything, the Sith tell the truth. Darth Vader told Luke the truth, where Obi-Wan Kenobi lied to him. Count Dooku told Obi-Wan the truth, that there was a Sith in control of the Senate. And Obi-Wan didn't believe him because he's a perceived
Sidious told
villain.
Anakin the truth about
Sidious told
the
Anakin the truth.
relationships, about the council being ineffective and being a bureaucracy.
Yep. Um, Darth Maul told Ahsoka the truth in the Siege of Mandalore, told her Anakin was the key to it all. He was going to bring down the Republic and the Jedi Order. She didn't believe him because he was a villain. So,
Yeah, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but if it is, it's a really, really good addition to the story.
yep. I did a couple videos on that. I think I did one recently, like yesterday or day before. I don't know. I make so many videos, I can't keep track of all of them. I know what I say in them, I just don't remember when I make them.
Jib Obanon asks, do you two of you think that Count Dooku would have been a more successful Sith Lord than Sidious, hypothetically assuming Anakin and Sidious were killed instead of Dooku during his betrayal?
No, I don't, because I don't see Dooku as being a full Sith. I see him as being more of a dark Jedi. He was Sith by title because he was Darth Sidious's apprentice, but at the same time, he's expendable just like Maul. Maul was a Sith assassin, where Dooku was a political idealist. I think Dooku had the right intentions, that he wanted the galaxy free and to be able to make their own choices independently, kind of like our states. We want our states to be sovereign from the federal government. He wanted each planetary system to be sovereign to themselves, where he didn't want to cause harm. He did cause harm, but that was out of necessity of war. Um, yeah, I don't think he would have been as mean or as good.
Yeah, I think Sidious was exceptionally intelligent. I think that was his crowning achievement of all the Sith Lords. He was incredibly intelligent in the way he did things, very meticulous, very planning.
Yep.
And his downfall was just kind of bad luck. He got bad lucked a couple times. His plan was perfect the entire way through, other than putting a single hole in the Death Stars that makes them all blow up. That part, I think, bad design. Whoever
Well,
did that probably should fire that guy. But
that and putting
Sidious's
all of
plan,
his faith in Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader's like, "Wait a minute, you're trying to kill my kid." It's the lightning never worked; it never killed anybody.
yep,
So
yep,
why use that?
yeah. But yeah, his like plan to take over the Senate worked so beautifully. His tactics, amazing. Politics,
Yep.
phenomenal. And then just his fun little torture side stuff screwed him up.
Yep.
Can you ask him how the Death Star moves through hyperspace? I don't think we've ever seen it actually traveling. Well, we saw it move
And
slightly. It moves like around the planet slowly.
yeah, in
Drifts.
Rogue One, it moved. They mentioned it. They said a large object's coming out of hyperspace, and then there's the Death Star. It has hyperdrives. It has regular turbo thrusters and all that. But we don't get to see them because we never see the backside of the planet or the space station. So I'm not sure what the technicals are on that, but I know it moves. Maybe it just moves through gases and air vents. I don't know.
All right. Well, we have been going for about an hour. It was a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir.
Delirious says, enjoy the conversation. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you want to give any links or references where people can find out more about your work?
Yeah, it's just Star Wars Fanatic on YouTube. I have other social media, but I'm not really engaged in it. I have a Discord as well that I jump into once a day, probably. But yeah, just find me on YouTube. That's where I hang out. That's my place to be.
Cool.
I'll
Thanks
definitely
again.
link yours to mine as well. I did put a link in my community tab if anybody wants to jump over and check that out. It's to your whole channel, not just to this video. Since I couldn't get the audio working on mine, I apologize to everybody for that. Sorry, I'm going to look into another program because the Streamlab thing does this to me all the time.
Yeah, if you want, you can just copy this video over if you were interested, and that's cool with me. But thanks again. It was great talking with you, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Tom. Have a great day.